I intend to present a Global South perspective because in this century, it is the Global South who will need to enhance well-being of their people in a carbon-constrained world to transform their societies. Climate change is an unprecedented challenge to human society. State of the climate system will determine economic outcome. An economic development model each country takes up will also determine the state of the climate system. Let us understand where are we now in terms of climate change. 2018 special report of IPCC on global warming says that human activities have caused approximately 1 degree Celsius of global warming since pre-industrial level. And already we are seeing consequences for people, nature, and livelihood. Critical human capital like human health, variety of natural capital like coral reefs, coasts, etc., and human activities like tourism, etc., are facing higher risks. Every bit of warming matters, every year matters, and every choice matters now. It is also known that energy use pattern in various economic sectors are leading to the greenhouse gas emissions. Electricity production, industrial production, and transport sector are the major emitters. Land use change through deforestation are also contributes, but less than the energy-related emissions. Let us also remember that it is the demand for energy which is driving the economic activities and also the population growth which are driving emissions. Although income growth, which is the dark blue, is also representing higher demand for activities and the emission growth. So income growth drives demand and has production and hence emissions. If we look at the developing country at this juncture, the real question is, so fast-growing developing countries of 21st century are in deep dilemma. Should they stop growing or keep growing, or how to grow differently? They cannot replicate the growth path of South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, or China, because they could maintain greater than 7% growth rate because of either heavy dependence on cheap coal or oil. Black is the coal, and blue, light blue is the oil. So we can see that it was more fossil fuel dependent growth path. The relative cheapness of the solar energy and wind energy have also changed these centuries, a relative market readiness of the technologies. So it is possible now to produce same output with 5 times less energy need through energy efficiency improvement. So now the question is, in IPCC report of 1.5, the 4 paths have been presented, and the world has to decide which development pathway to follow. It is possible to focus on human well-being and demand-side energy use reduction strategies and avoid any large-scale dependence on uncertain technologies in future years, which is the first low energy demand scenario, where, as the rightmost shows, the fossil fuel and to push the decision by betting on uncertain technologies like bioenergy, carbon capture, and storage. Now, if we focus on the supply side, there are alternative futures where greenhouse gas emissions will decrease drastically, but the primary energy consumption will not decrease so much because of the increase in renewable energies, and resource need for the developing world is not going to reduce. This is, of course, the results for Asia following the IPCC 4 pathways, which I have already shown. However, there are various ways to reduce demand for energy and reduce the supply side investment need and wasteful energy consumption. I just want to show that past century story was one of coupling of energy use and economic activity. If you look into the India's industry sector, it was the story of coupling. 1 unit of GDP needed 1 unit of energy. But what happened is that gradually with the technology improvement and the energy intensity reduction and along this green path, the activity growth and the emission and the energy need has been decoupled compared to previous decades, and now they are relatively decoupling from each other because of the technological progress. So there is, of course, the worldwide energy intensity improvement we can see for all the different regions in the world. Energy efficiency is improving. Also, the IPCC report of 2014 clearly shows that the investment will be rising is in the energy efficiency across sectors, whereas investment is expected to go down in extraction of fossil fuel power plants without carbon capture and storage, and clean energy fuel, the investment will go up. So the question is, the transition of the social systems are going to be dominated by the energy transitions, but not that in each country is taking advantage of investment scope and possibility. If we look at different countries, their GDP growth rate and the energy growth rate, still there is strong coupling between energy and the GDP growth, and the energy intensity is actually higher in Bangladesh, whereas in many countries they are declining, although in South Korea during their fast growing phase it was more coupled growth, but in Bangladesh there is possibility of taking advantage of energy intensity investment, and so that the energy efficiency can improve. So there is important, what we need to understand is that there is scope for the developing countries now to make progress in terms of demand side reduction. So in IPCC report, we could show that the energy demand side actions, like, as I said, the energy efficiency improvement, or say, for example, reduction in waste in energy, all these things can help in getting more health benefit, like these are the SDG benefits, so human health benefit, water related benefit, and multiple benefits in terms of SDGs. So one can pursue the climate action as well as which will help in advancing the sustainable development goals, but not so much if we are concentrating more on the energy supply side. So focusing on energy demand side gives us much larger benefit in terms of economic benefits as well. So developing countries where new industrialization will happen, we are showing in our recent publication that there is possibility of adopting circular economy concept, and also maybe the industrial symbiosis and eco-industrial park to be considering, because they can help in avoiding the emission and which are considered as preventive actions. If we look at the transport sector, the compact cities and reduction in ownership of vehicle by following more public transport can provide this preventive action benefit and can avoid emission. Similarly, in the buildings also, the passive building design and then energy saving behavior can help in advancing the emission reduction. What we are trying to show in our one of the very recent publications done with climate strategies is that critical junction on the energy journey to 1.5 degree. We know that this decade is going to be a decisive decade, and we need to reduce GHG emission, but selecting into different intervention areas. So where to focus on, but then this can help means that acceleration to deliver net zero goal of mid-century, because 2020 is a significant year. It marked a turning point in GHG emissions. So for net zero, this reduction in 2020 needs to be repeated each year for next 2 decades, starting from 2021. So this is something which is very important, that we are seeing that there are 6 sensitive intervention points which can help in achieving these goals. And what are these 6 sensitive points? So in the renewables should be coming in more and more, and the fossil fuels should be going out. And the rate is that globally in 2020, where 25% of electricity was from renewable, in 2030, it should be 65%. And simultaneous actions are needed in electrification of energy services and energy efficient appliances, upward revision of energy efficiency standards, preference of shift from ownership to usership, as I have already mentioned, new business models for electricity trading. The second one is about zero emission transport. And as I said, we need to double the public transport usage, and electrification of transport sector is an important area. Aviation use need to be reducing, and there should be efficiency in the equipments. And in the shipping sector, actually, many big shipping companies are coming up with net zero pledges. So in the to change the demand, as I said earlier also, what we need is the food and dietary system, where a major shift from animal source product to plant-based diets and the reduction of food waste can significantly reduce emissions. And we are already seeing that US, UK, and Sweden have been showing signs of reducing meat consumption within a range of 14 to 23%. Heavy industries need to commit to science-based targets, and energy-intensive industries like cement, iron, and steel must commit to carbon neutrality through technological innovation, such as electrification, green hydrogen, and carbon removal. Human settlements need to be zero carbon, zero emissions building and infrastructure are a must. And existing building stock need to decarbonize by at least 3% annually, starting now by adopting retrofits. And there are one thing is very important, that there has to be sink capacity increase, and which is now said to be like nature-based solution or ecosystem-based solutions, which means reforestation of forests, coastal ecosystem can shift land use from being a source of emission to net sink for storing carbon. So if we can continue to do all these reduction, then we see that the reduction potential is almost 70% in this decade along these green growth strategies. So in our another recent publication, what we showed is that the aim is to aim for rapid growth in developing countries to enhance the human well-being with disaster resilience, what is really needed is investment in 5 kinds of capital. And 5 kinds of capitals are like natural capital, human capital, social capital, knowledge capital, and physical capital. And these are some of the examples that good quality of air, water, forest, climate system, we need to make investment for. We need trained human capacity to deliver the change. We need trustworthy governance, and baseline data are needed for all these with georeference data of critical infrastructure, vulnerable population. And we do need investment in early warning system, efficient buildings, railroads, public buses, as we have already said, water treatment plants. So these are the ones where if investment is made, then we can break the vicious cycle and can go for virtuous cycle, which can help in sustaining the economies. So basically what we are saying is that we have seen for Bangladesh what is holding back the penetration of renewable energy. Most important are the human capacity and the lack of policy towards those. So this is something which is very important, that we need to break the barriers to advance these economies. And our analysis shows that the 2020 is a significant year. The global investment requirement for a Paris-compatible pathway has been estimated to be $1.4 trillion per year in the period 2020 to 24, because everybody asks whether we have money for doing all these. Our answer is that yes, we do have money, because the global stimulus packages in response to the COVID-19 is amounting to 12 trillion, and we need 1.4 trillion, which means that we need only 10% of this global package, so that that can deliver the Paris compatible low carbon growth path, and which is also green growth path. So 2020 is a significant year. So now, as we are starting the new decade, the question is, the world has a unique opportunity to reshape the future in these new directions. So are we going to do that? So that is something very important, and we all need to be working towards that. And I think educational institutions like AIT has a very important role to play by creating the human capacity to deliver this change in this decade. And being a regional institute, it caters to the human capacity building of this region. And in this energy transition, AIT can play a very important role. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.